The end of the world's probably when a giant meteor hits the Earth. Hopefully it'll be thousands of years from now, so it won't mean a whole lot to me.
What happens after the world is gone?
Uh, well, I don't know. Hopefully by that time the human race is living on the moon and other places. Maybe life goes on.
What is despair?
What is despair? Despair is being extremely unhappy.
Have you ever experienced the end of the world or your world?
No. But when my father died, I was very depressed for a while. So that would be probably the closest to that.
Is there hope in despair?
I would say so, yeah.
And then can the end of the world be prevented, and how?
Well, I would say that the scenario that I had said, I guess there's no way to necessarily prevent something like that from hitting the Earth. But if humans spread out to the moon and other planets, then that would allow human life to go on.
Well, I don't think there will be an end of the world. That, in years would be so far into the future that, and when you say the world, you mean civilization or do you mean the planet itself?
It's up to your interpretation.
I see. So the end of the world. Well, I'll just say mankind, probably global warming and carbon fuel consumption would be a problem that seems to be a very real problem. So hopefully we can get that under control. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to see the error of our ways and be able to do something about it. That's my thought. And I'm 71 years old. Lived in California since I was about 7, so I'm from California.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean, like the end of the world? What is the meaning of it?
Well, for civilization, that could be the end of mankind, okay? The end of the world being the physical planet. I think that it was, they talk about millions or billions of years. So that's a long ways into the future. Right. I mean, if an asteroid was to hit us, that would be, again, a remarkable event. Possibly an asteroid is what made the Gulf of Mexico, and possibly then that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. So, we wouldn't want that to occur.
What happens after the world is gone?
Well, again, if we're talking about civilization, then I'm not sure. Well, maybe extinct, and then actually it's an evolutionary thing. It would then be that plant life would then regenerate, and it would all then come back to life.
Yeah. What is despair?
Despair? That would be without having hope.
Have you experienced the end of the world or the end of your world?
Oh no, not at all. I'm at the beginning. Is there hope in despair? Well, actually, I will say, I've never been despaired in my whole life, so I just don't. That isn't part of my natural personality. I'm always very happy, so I don't have despair in any form at all. Actually, I have just the opposite. I have happiness and glee, even in work. Every day I'm happy.
That's good. Can the end of the world be prevented, and how?
Oh, it could be prevented just by us making good decisions. Yeah.
I think it would be the world probably baking. Because, at some point in the near future, it's like we're going to end up with so much ozone, or so much carbon in the atmosphere that it's just going to start microwaving our planet. All the radiation's just going to kind of bake everything.
What does the end of the world mean to you?
I think just like the eradication of life, most like human life, and then I think there's going to be like animals and life that survives, but I think eradication of like the end of the world would be human stuff. Because I mean, that's really what we think of when we think of life. I mean, like in a sense, like conscious life is humans.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. But if there was like a total death of the world, like end to end, I think it would be everything dying. Which, if the world was microwaved, I think everything would die.
Yeah. What happens after the world is gone?
Well, there's millions of other worlds like Earth. So, I mean, compared to the universe, I think we're kind of minuscule. So, I think we'll live on, in a sense, in other planets.
What is despair?
Despair. I think it's losing loved ones, like death, sadness, being alone.
Have you ever experienced the end of the world or your world?
Oh, not yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there hope in despair?
I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I think in going through despair, you'll end up coming out of despair in some way or another. Like someone dies, I mean, eventually you'll get over it. I mean, it might take time, but I think at some point you'll find another thing to love, another thing to find that joy in.
So, can the end of the world be prevented? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scientific methods that are coming through that can help us prevent the end of the world, in my sense. I think first things first is just caring for our planet in general. Like factories, cutting down carbon emissions, and such. Yeah.
Any final statements?
I think we should save the world. It'll be a good statement.
So, what is the end of the world?
Are you asking me within the specific context or something, or just what it means to me?
What it means to you?
So from like a human standpoint, when humans are no longer here, but in my opinion, the end of the world is when nature starts to cease to exist. And we're already well on the way. Like with ocean acidification, we already have like the chain reactions beginning very quickly. So I guess when nature is only existing once we cultivate it, I guess. Or when the sun explodes, eventually.
I was going to ask you, how will the world end?
Well, right now we're on a track for like world acidification because the ocean is acidifying. And so once that happens, we're going to have less and less oxygen to even out all of the carbon dioxide and things that are like acidic in the air. So then basically we won't have anything with a shell, so like no snails, no crabs, no nothing. And then plants won't really be able to grow, and then we won't really be able to breathe. And if we wait long enough for that to happen, we might get taken out by the sun, because I guess the sun is due to explode as well.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Because not like explode, but you know how like stars go through different phases and they like eventually just kind of like go and then they collapse.
Supernova.
Yeah, kind of.
That'd be like
But it would be like we would realize it's happening, and then like 8 minutes later it would just be like there would be like no suffering or anything though, because it just happens so fast. But yeah, I don't know.
What happens after the world is gone?
Happens all over again. Because there's all these different theories about how Mars used to have life on it or whatever, because there's frozen water and it's completely barren now. And the second you take an atmosphere away from a planet, nothing can survive on it because of space winds and things. So either Earth will begin to recycle and this will all happen again, or something, it will just happen somewhere else. What is despair? Oh, that one's heavy. I don't know. I think it's like the epitome of helplessness, right?
Yeah. Have you ever experienced the end of the world or your own world?
I've definitely had moments where I thought I was close. But what was it? My uncle used to say that, Uncle Pete used to say, like, everything's okay in the end, and so if it's not okay, it's not the end, kind of thing. So I definitely haven't experienced the end of the world personally, but, everyone has moments, I think, where you feel like it's the end of the world.
Is there hope in despair?
I mean, you can't have light without dark. So I think there definitely is. And, once you get all the way to the bottom, the only way you can go is up. And I know that's kind of cheesy, but it's true. And I've definitely been in spots in my life where it was like, you know what, like, this is real shit. And, all we can do right now is learn from it, kind of thing. So I think, yeah. But it also, everyone is different. So
That's a good answer. So how can the end of the world, can the end of the world be prevented? And if so, how?
From a nature standpoint, yes, we have very limited ways that we can. And I think, preventing the end of the world, because what you were saying about, like, have you experienced the end of the world made me think about how everyone has their personal end of the world kind of thing. And I guess ending the end of the world, or preventing the end of the world for people, like individual world endings, whatever, obviously we need to be supporting everyone better. Emotionally, financially, economically, like in a health sense, we could be doing so much more. Just everyone could be, I think. And then for the Earth, we have, I say we, like I'm the person coming up with these things, but there have been several proposed solutions, like desalinification of ocean water for fresh water, because that would solve so many of our problems. And like reducing emissions and things like that. But what you said about the personal end of the world really stuck with me. So I think that, yes, it is preventable.
Society collapses and all humans cease to exist. Well, it could end with the sun blowing up, with that one volcano erupting in that one national park, Yellowstone erupting, a solar flare. There's just so many factors that could cause the world to just collapse. San Andreas might go off. And yeah, a lot of natural disasters can cause us to go extinct.
So what does the end of the world mean to you?
The end of the world means when everybody has read their individuality and everybody's the same and there aren't any morals or anything. But the end of the world can also mean when humans cease to exist and there's just the nature and the plant life, which would probably be best for the world because we are ruining it. But as Pink Floyd once said, what was hers, she shall take back.
What happens after the world is gone?
Well, everything will perspire and evolution will take over.
Now, this is a little bit of change in question. What is despair?
My view of despair is when you're so caught up in your sadness that you fall into this spiral that's never ending and you don't know what to do or where to go. You're just there in your own dark little room with no light at the end of your tunnel. That's what I think despair might be.
Have you ever experienced the end of the world?
No, but I've experienced things that felt like the end of my world. If you want me to elaborate, I can elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a child, I got caught lying. I took my 3DS, and that was the end of my little world because I couldn't play Super Mario Brothers anymore for a good week. There was a point in time where I felt really suicidal, and the cops came, and my mom yelled at me saying, "Why would you feel that way? How could you feel that way? why would you do this to me? And that felt like the end of my world during that moment in time. But I've never felt the end of the world physically, always mentally. And it was never my own, or the whole world, it was always my own. So yeah,
Is there hope in despair?
there is always hope. As much as people want to say that there's never hope, there is always hope. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, even if it is a lie. There's always something to keep us going, no matter what it is. It's there. It's your choice to either take it or leave it.
Can the end of the world be prevented, and how?
Mentally, it depends on the person. Because if you really think about it, there's the end of your personal world and there's the end of the actual world. The end of the actual world is something you cannot prevent, besides, natural gases and decreasing the amount of pollution we produce as a human race, and not killing animals in the sense of just for killing. Because some hunting is very good, especially for overpopulation, but other than that, there's those options. But personally, to not end my own world is to just keep going.
So what is the end of the world?
What? What's the end of the world? Okay. When the world ends, it's known as the apocalypse. I don't know what happens when the world ends. I guess the sun explodes and then the world's gone.
How will the world end?
I don't know.
What do you think will happen?
I don't know. I don't think about these things.
Okay.
I think I'm not sure, but I think that the sun will have a supernova and then become a black hole, and somehow that will, well, probably finish off Earth. The sun explodes. I think Earth will be done.
What happens after the world is gone?
More worlds keep going. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I would.
What is despair?
What is despair? Well, to me, despair means loneliness, because I don't know, the first time I really felt despair was when I was homeschooled and I was really, really lonely. So I guess despair would just be, I don't know. To me, it means wanting something and being told you can't have it. But needing something and being told you can't have it. What is the end of the world? It's the apocalypse. It's when the world ends. I suppose when the sun explodes, and because of that, well, the sun supernovas to be precise, because too much, I think it has to do, supernovas anyway, have to do with the iron in the sun's core. The sun at the core of itself starts generating iron, which is one of the most densest metals, I think. And when that happens, it can't compress the iron enough, so eventually it just makes too much iron, and boom. And then the Earth goes boom with it, and then, the Earth is done.
Have you ever experienced the end of the world? Or of your world?
Ooh, that's interesting. Have I ever experienced the end of the world or my world? Well, I couldn't say I've experienced the end of the world. I could say that I've experienced the end of many worlds, because I feel like I've lived many different worlds, or chapters of life. But to me, they're like worlds. They're like separate universes almost. I mean, every time one of my worlds ends, I guess it starts again. Another world starts. Kind of like the circle of life, if you think about it. I went through a phase where I went to elementary school, and I was kind of like I don't know, like a troublemaker. I was a bad student. I never did my work. I was always roughhousing with other kids and all that, and blah, blah, blah. And then, then I was homeschooled. That drastically changed my life. So I went from troublemaker, that world ended along with that me, and then I went to being homeschooled. And I had I had very little contact with friends or anything of that sort for, well, until high school. So what is 8th grade to ninth grade? Well, not 8th grade. Sorry. What is 3rd grade to ninth grade? So 6 years. And then I went to high school, the high school homeschool system, my charter school that I was going to. They had a high school program, and I would go 2 days a week. And I would see other people, but not really see them. I didn't get to know them. They weren't true friends. They weren't close. I just saw them at school, and we knew each other well because we were 200 kids at the school. But I had no close friends. On the weekends, I would get my work done and sit alone and do nothing. And then it kind of made me crazy, actually, the isolation. And then that ended when I went to Frontier Public School, public high school. Sophomore year, I said enough, and I went to Frontier. And that was just a complete mess, almost like an interim. Felt like purgatory, so kind of interesting. But I mean, that is what purgatory is, a part of life. I'm rambling now, but I'll finish. And then high school, then after high school, now I'm here. Oh, and then quarantine. So then I was homeschooled again, and that was a completely different life. I mean, I was really cut off, but in a weird sense, I wasn't, because that's when I made most of my friends that I actually still have. The few ones I have maybe 3. I mean, excluding the ones I've made here at, UC Santa Cruz. I don't know what this world holds yet, because I was just born, if you think about it.
Is there hope in despair?
Is there hope in despair? It depends on the despair. I don't think there's only one despair. I think everyone's despair is different.
Okay, you personally, I suppose.
Personally, I haven't figured that out yet. I don't know. I think there's a lot of hope, but I think there's so much hope in despair, and that's what makes it despair. Because if there wasn't hope, it would just be, crap, well, I guess my life sucks. But when your life sucks, but you keep hoping for the better, but you keep getting disappointed, and hope, this cycle is what despair is, I suppose.
Can the end of the world be prevented? Or how? I probably need to rearrange these questions.
No, it's fine. Well, if you take it literally, I don't know. I'm no scientist. The end of my world? I mean, no, I think worlds die and new ones come into being. It's just the circle of the world, I suppose. I don't know, the circle of life. If you think about it. Circle of worlds.
Any last statements?
What was this about?
Here I combined everyone's interpretations of my questions, their visions, their hopes, and their fears all into one illustration about what they think the end of the world might be like.